When Corsair originally sent me this mouse to try playing Star Citizen with it, it was okay. I have bigger hands, so the wider fit on this thing and the extra finger support over here, they were nice. Obviously, having 12 buttons within a thumb's reach is also nice, but it actually took me a while to figure out all of the functionality of this thing besides just using it as a number pad. To put it plainly, these mouse buttons actually get recognized as a full-on Elgato Stream Deck that carries all the functionality of one without having to move your hands from your mouse and keyboard. And with a dedicated Star Citizen plugin that binds the buttons to actions in the game, well, let's just say I never forget putting my helmet on anymore. Is this the perfect mouse for Star Citizen? I think it's amongst the crowd, but everyone's going to prefer something different. So I'm going to show you what I like about this thing, what makes it stand out a little bit, and maybe you can decide if it's worth your time. If so, I can also get you a 10% discount on this, but we'll talk about that later. This is not a sponsored video. I just actually find this mouse to be pretty useful. Thought you might too for games like Star Citizen, and wanted to share. Let's talk about the Scimitar. So, unlike many of you, I didn't grow up playing PC games. I'm awful with the mouse and keyboard, and while I am learning as fast as I can, there's no denying that even if I remember certain key bindings, I still oftentimes have to look down to find them. And even if I get everything figured out in Star Citizen or whatever game I'm playing, I still have audio to monitor and probably some other apps going on in the meantime. Having a Stream Deck with visible functions on it is pretty nice, but the ability to jump between Discord channels during an event with just the press of a button on your thumb, pretty nifty. Then there's also things like eye tracking, you have push to talk that you want to sometimes set up, and then you have the apps that I'm talking about, if you're mining or salvaging or something like that. Every few seconds or every few minutes, you might need to look over and access something. Everybody has their solution to these things when they start piling up. This mouse just happens to work for me. But like before we get into the Stream Deck stuff, let's talk about the basics. This is a palm grip mouse. It's not incredibly light. It comes in at 114 grams, but I prefer the solid feel, to be honest. The skates on this thing are pretty wide and low, actually. There's not a lot of space for like grit to get in there, and I think they feel pretty good, giving me what I'd call like a medium resistance, I guess, across the desk. The segmented wheel clicks in, and right beneath it is the DPI button. You've obviously also got the single USB port in the front you can use to charge it, or you can connect with it. You can also use Bluetooth or the more reliable wireless dongle. Now obviously back to the main killer feature here, the number pad. You can actually slide this back and forth, as you can see there, for comfort if you've got bigger or smaller thumbs. But I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, like, how easy is it to accidentally press one of these buttons? I actually do accidentally press these buttons every so often, and I'll show you a little bit later. I like to set them so that there's only an important feature on a double tap, like the lights on this one, instead of a single tap, because you are going to accidentally press it. It's just how it goes. And what is it worth? I think it's the Stream Deck functionality. That's really it. There are plenty of mice with buttons like this, but a Stream Deck has plugins. And like I said, there is a Star Citizen supported one, but also just a bunch of other games, programs for editing and tools, web browsers, and random bright spots like this one button I can click anywhere on the screen at any point, and it saves the hex code for me. Pretty useful for making thumbnails. Where this does get more confusing than a normal Stream Deck, though, is that you can't actually see the buttons you're pressing. See, with a normal Stream Deck like the one on this keyboard, you can actually see the context changing under your fingers, which makes it a lot easier to know what you're about to press before you press it. Unfortunately, with this mouse, not so much. There are no screens here. This is why I put things like removing my helmet on a double tap and wiping the visor on the single tap. Or like I said before, instead of putting a single tap for the lights, a double tap. Never a risky control on the single tap is my mantra. But also, another feature that actually helps with this issue is the Virtual Stream Deck. The Virtual Stream Deck is a standalone system that anybody can download for free that gives you a virtual macro pad on your computer. It gives you all the Stream Deck functionality that you would normally get, but you can just customize it on the screen right there. You can actually go to the website and download this right now if you want. It gives you access to the plugins, the multi-point functionalities, the different pages, the profiles. It's the same stuff. It's just usable for you to make macros out of. Now, I personally use it as a bit of a cheat sheet for my mouse. See, because I can't remember where the buttons are here, I make a virtual Stream Deck page that matches the layout of these buttons, and I keep it on the screen. I currently have a page for Star Citizen basics, things like single tapping here so that I can reload, and a double tap so that I can repool all my ammo, or a single tap over here for the inventory and a long hold for the looting screen. This one's actually especially nice because the looting boxes in Star Citizen have inconsistent controls for some reason. So this unifies it all into one button, which is pretty cool. I also have a button for accepting notifications and declining them, because when you get into large parties, we all know that goes crazy. And then obviously a button for proximity talk that simultaneously mutes your mates in Discord. I think everybody has something like that. And then up the row here, I just put a button to assign my primary weapon, my secondary weapon, my pistol, and a button to record something in case anything fun happens. These aren't crazy key bindings. Everybody does this with their mice or their tablet or their Stream Deck or Game Glass, whatever it might be. I just think the accessibility of having the Stream Deck functionality like on an actual mouse is pretty nice. I also have a page I can switch to from my Star Citizen basics over to camera mode whenever I want to get a shot real quick. Lets me save a few of my buttons as different camera angles that you can switch really quickly, or I can change features like my field of view or my zoom in, zoom out, all while of course still using the Z key, but at least not using the F4 key too. You sometimes can accidentally press F4 with other buttons. It doesn't go well. Besides that, I have a more general purpose page that I'm just building for using my computer in general, and then I want to get something for flight controls before I can polish everything and move on. But in order to make this work for me, I have to have the virtual Stream Deck mirroring my pages on the screen, because like I said in the beginning, I can't remember where things are. But from what I've heard of others, the Scimitar has always been a pretty good mouse. I think now, just because the Stream Deck software has become so mature, it's kind of a bonus on top. But everyone knows nothing's perfect, so what is the catch with something like this? All software has its issues, and the Elgato functions that are made and distributed by third parties are no different. That's not to say that it wasn't user error. I'm sometimes not very good with tech, but at least sometimes I can say that my key bindings straight up do not register as I've set them up with this mouse. More often, this happened with secondary key press functions like holding and double tapping stuff. I also found that some of the bindings, like bringing up the personal inner thoughts menu for emotes, didn't work, which was disappointing. While I would assign emotes to the different buttons on the separate page, a quick click to the menu in the game would suffice. You do actually also have two softwares to use for full functionality here, which means twice as many opportunities for problems. Both the iQue and Elgato software are required. Though if you want to download nothing, the mouse itself still works like a normal mouse, and the keypad just replaces your normal keypad. So technically it still gives you a lot of control, especially because in a lot of games these numbers are already assigned to buttons anyways. Funny enough, it actually replaces the keypad on the Corsair keyboard they released earlier this year that didn't have one. But I gotta say, with the two pieces of software, I actually have run into a few problems with iQue communicating with the Elgato Stream Deck software. When that does break, you kind of lose all the functionality you got from the Stream Deck. And that can be a real problem if you're relying on it and you can't get it set up again. I've had times where restarting it over and over again simply didn't work. Sometimes it does, but it can be frustrating. Bit of a headache, but generally the only real one I've run into so far, besides the fact that I can just never remember my key bindings, even with a cheat sheet. And of course, the worst part of any additional peripheral, the setup. This is just inevitable, and it can be a drag. But I found the setup to be pretty pain-free once you do download some free icon packs, and you do get the SC plugin by Jerix985. I will leave the link down below for that, so that you can check it out and try it out for yourself. It takes some tinkering to learn it, but it's really good for getting those key bindings that you do have to use often, but hate to look for. I am also considering polishing up the pages and profiles that I'm making for this, and maybe getting them somewhere to download for you guys, like on the video description or on Patreon, or to the people who send me toe pics. Don't actually send me toe pics. So between the exclusivity of the Stream Deck functionality in this and the wider hand support from this thing in the back here, this is quite nice the way it hits your ring finger. I'm pretty locked in with this mouse. As somebody who can't seem to find controls unless they're sitting under my hands already, this works. Yes, I am a controller gamer, get over it. Sorry, it feels more natural, and controllers vibrate more. But I do think this integration and support is going to continue. Corsair is already starting to advertise their new releases with Star Citizen, and I know they're going to be watching the comments on this video to get some feedback. Maybe. On that note, they did send me this mouse so that I could try it out with Star Citizen, get an understanding of how it helps, who it helps to play, and what they can do to better improve it. So let me know what you guys think down below. And if you'd like to get this or any other Corsair peripheral at 10% off, you can use code TOMATO, or you can hit the link down below. And really, if you use that link, any sale that you do, we'll still give a kickback to the channel as support, and I appreciate that. Yes, even RAM. As I said before, this is not a sponsored video. Corsair does not know I'm even releasing this, but I do appreciate them reaching out to us and giving us a chance to try this out. I do also appreciate you watching this video until the end. I hope you learned something new in it, and I will catch you in the next. And if you do want to see another hardware video from me, that's fantastic. I appreciate you. I actually did something talking about this Corsair Galleon keyboard that I mentioned during this video you can check out next to me. Thanks for watching.